When Kate and I met almost 50 years ago, she was feverishly busy interviewing prostitutes from the back of her Buick convertible, tearing wallpaper off the walls of an old farmhouse, walking to Albany in support of gay political candidates, and planning a movie about 3 women living in America. I could not keep track. I was at the time exploring another way of life, the practice of meditation and, you might say, non-thinking. We were on different paths, and yet instantly enjoyed a rather remarkable connection. She, of course, was celebrating the early success of sexual politics and forming lifelong friendships in what was the first lesbian feminist consciousness-raising group in New York City. This included Barbara Love, Sidney Abbott, Jane O'Wyatt, Phyllis Birkby, Nath Rockhill, and Alma Rotsong, among others. After our meetings, we all trooped over to a women's bar on 14th Street and often danced to the Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. There were other women there, of course, furtive in corners, dykes in the old sense, but we were from another planet, so we thought. We had discovered sisterhood. The guys at the door left us alone. Kate was an improbable celebrity, a spokesperson for feminism. Her phone was always ringing, which was one reason she liked to visit me just around the corner from the Bowery loft she shared with the wonderful Fumio. She was first an intellectual, of course, a bookworm at the top of her form, but no ordinary one. Nobody in the world could pinpoint the disingenuousness and general wrong-headedness of politicians with the brio and energy of Kate Millett. Our breakfasts, perusing the New York Times, were filled with hilarity. Scrambled eggs, coffee, and heavy cream, too. An old lawnmower wheezed back and forth in the marble cemetery below my window, the caretaker coughing every now and again. How young and strong we felt, how superior to the old and dead. We always talked about what we were reading, and in authentic Old English, Kate could recite portions of the Canterbury Tales, and often did. She insisted I read Viollet le Duc's La Bâtarde. She was extraordinarily taken with le Duc's raw, confessional, somewhat messy style. The whole trajectory of her writing career was now profoundly influenced by this protege of Simone de Beauvoir. No more Mandarin mid-Atlantic prose of sexpol, as Kate now dismissively referred to her first success. About this time, I took Kate to see Dorothy Day, whose house of hospitality was on East First Street, where I had helped on the soup line. It was thrilling to see them, the social reprobate and the servant of God, sitting close together at a long table, chain smoking, and talking in low voices about nonviolence for hours. They both lived on the Bowery, political radicals committed to social justice and human dignity. Dorothy Day founded the Catholic Worker and defended the poor and the forsaken. Kate fought for the rights of women, lesbians, gays, sex workers, the elderly, the tortured, and finally the mentally ill. Dorothy Day has since been recognized by the Church as living a life of, quote, heroic virtue, unquote, and is on the path to sainthood. Perhaps our most important bond was that we both were occupied with what we called veritas, what it was, how to acquire it, how it's lost. The qualities I most cherished about this early Kate were her exquisite clarity of mind, her sense of the absurd, and her moral judgment, which I deemed infallible. I shared her sense of the absurd, made her laugh, and she thought I was kind. She began calling me Clarke. Influenced by Leduc's terrible candor, she exposed in her next books the most personal aspects of her emotional, sexual, and psychological life to a social landscape that was hostile. And Kate experienced a cruel, in-your-face pushback that left her very vulnerable. Thus, her real pilgrimage had begun, as had mine. In 1972, I took a 10-year hiatus in ashrams and reluctantly abandoned the Lower East Side, the feminist movement, my CR group, and most especially Kate, who soon left for an extended stay in California. About halfway through this self-imposed exile, Kate returned and found me in my modest urban ashram in Jamaica, Queens. She was dealing unsuccessfully with acute manic depression and was talking too fast and had acquired a menacing tone I was not used to. Looking worn out and rumpled, she described how people complained when she didn't wear pants at the farm and the police were constantly being called for one reason or another. I was working at a place called Guru Health Foods, wearing a sari and sneakers, making endless bags of fruit and nut mix, and trying to become a vegetarian by eating cashews and dried pineapple. We became hysterical, trying to figure out what had happened to our lives and who was crazier. When she finally drove away, top down, black hair flying in the wind, she shouted over her shoulder, "Clarke, call me when you find something." I stayed 5 years in these ashrams, and finally, when I returned from a 5-month trip to India, I rejoined Kate and her new love, Sophie Keir, lived in the philosophy section of the loft, and became eventually the mother of the farm. The farm. At the farm, Kate was finally president of her own university. She created a special curriculum for women artists and writers from all over the world. How to be intrepid, how to create and appreciate beauty, how to endure physical, impossibly different labors, how to survive heat, Lyme ticks, poison ivy, exhaustion, each other. How to be radicals by going to the root of everything. Sophie was the chief engineer, the general contractor, the master electrician and plumber, and most important, the soother of souls and anything else she needed to be. Myself, I emptied ashtrays, cooked lots of meat, kept naked women out of the kitchen, swam with Kate every day, reflecting on the day's events, and presided over the dining room dinner conversation, constantly trying to raise the tone. We all remember the loosestrife, the elm over the pond, the light, the great blue heron, champagne on the sunset hill, the sounds of the women laughing through open windows, their confidence growing every day. Everyone who came to the farm was altered. Each one of you, in your own way, has moved us forward. Today, we are here to celebrate the wayward American original who so successfully struggled with the conservative canon at Oxford, who learned to drive a tractor up and down steep hills, who planted and harvested and sold Christmas trees, who wrote 11 books translated into 9 languages, who created and led a utopian women's artist colony, and built her own silkscreen studio and sculpture studio, who defied every convention, who changed our world, all the while dealing with an unruly mind. In 1981, she hastily wrote in pencil under a little watercolor of her beloved red tractor. Every day, holding it together, just as it comes apart again. Another leaves, something else breaks or won't start. The money's gone, or the weather turns against us. Big as life, this farm, filling the whole sky with passion. Some might deny my friend lived the life of heroic virtue which she so desperately craved. But no one can ever deny that Kate Millett was big as life. Thank you.